What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Awesome Tech You Can't Buy It, a show where I round up all of the best crowdfunding projects that have hit the internet this week. All right, so first up this week is the Oddball, which is a throwable drum machine. So if there's anything that Kickstarter is good for, it's definitely really strange musical instruments, and this is one of those. It's essentially a tennis ball sized device that you can bounce off of various surfaces, and using a bunch of pressure sensors and accelerometers, it can tell what surfaces it's bouncing off of and how hard it's bouncing. Now the cool thing is it's also paired with an app so that you can customize what sounds it makes when you bounce it off of various surfaces. So if you're skilled enough, you can bounce it off of walls and chairs and tables and make beats with it. It's a pretty neat idea, I think. If you back it right now, you can lock one down for about 65 bucks. 78 if you miss the early bird pledge, and they are shooting for a January 2019 ship date. I'm going to say it right now, that's a little bit ambitious, and they're probably going to push that back by about 2 or 3 months. Next up is the Looking Glass, which is a really crazy looking hologram generator. It's a little bit different than most of the ones that I've seen on Kickstarter before because it uses a completely different method of creating a hologram. So instead of using this illusion that's called Pepper's Ghost, which really just tricks your brain into thinking you're seeing something in 3D, this thing uses 45 different images of an object. They're all at slightly different angles, and it projects them through a polarized piece of glass, which makes this really convincing looking 3D object. So you can move around, you don't need any headset, and it will appear as though the object is three-dimensional, which is pretty neat. Only downside, it's kind of expensive. If you want one of these suckers, you're gonna have to put up at least 450 bucks. They're shooting for a December 2018 ship date. I feel like it's kind of unlikely that they're gonna make that one though. Next up, we have the GoSun Fusion, which is a solar-powered oven. So GoSun is kind of like the premier solar cooker brand. They've produced a bunch of these in the past. The difference between this one and the past ones is that this one can actually run and it can cook things when the sun isn't out. So most of these GoSun devices, they have this really crazy parabolic mirror thing that reflects all the sunlights through this vacuum sealed tube, and it's really, really efficient at collecting sunlight and directing it at the food you want to cook. But the problem is that doesn't work when there's no sun out. So to get around that problem, they basically put in a little electric heating element that is battery powered, so you can cook whenever you want to. If you want to get your hands on one of these guys, you have to put up at least 300 bucks. That's the early bird pledge. If you miss out on all of those, it's going to go up to about 350 bucks. And they're shooting for an April of 2019 ship date, which is completely reasonable, and I fully expect these guys to deliver on time because they are a big company and they've produced tons of these devices before. Moving on, next thing that we have up for you is the Brew Cube, which is a cold brew coffee maker. So if you're at all familiar with cold brew coffee, you know that it is delicious, it's super sweet, not nearly as bitter as regular hot brewed coffee. The only problem with it is it's kind of tricky to brew. It takes a lot longer and it's really just kind of finicky. There are not a ton of great options for brewing it yourself at home. So what the Brew Cube does is it completely automates the process. You just stick in the grounds, pour in some water, and tell it how long you want the grounds to steep. And then when that's done, it will automatically pour it for you. So there's no risk of over brewing, which is pretty cool. If you want to lock one of these suckers down, you can get one on Kickstarter right now for 70 bucks. That's the early bird pledge. Otherwise, it's going to be about 80 bucks. All right, last but not least, we have the Expandals, which, as you may have guessed from the name, they are expanding sandals. Pretty dorky name, but it's a really cool idea. So just to give you some background, these things were born from a project that happened a couple years ago for expanding sandals for kids in third world countries that don't have access to footwear, and we're constantly outgrowing it. It was a huge success. They've shipped these sandals all over to like multiple countries, but now they've redesigned them and made them for kids in industrialized countries. So the idea is they are a shoe that just grows and expands as your kid's foot grows and expands, so that you don't have to buy them like 12 pairs of shoes before they turn 10 years old. If you back the project now, you can actually get a pair of these for about 50 bucks, early bird, 55 if you're a little late to the game, and they're gonna shoot for a March of 2019 ship date. And I think that is completely reasonable given the fact that these guys have made these before. That does it for this week, but be sure to tune in again next week if you want to see 5 more awesome crowdfunding projects that you probably wouldn't have seen otherwise. Also, if you enjoyed the video, definitely be sure to like and subscribe. And if you want to check out some of our older episodes, go ahead and check out the playlist over here on my right. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys again next week.